Next step, we actually need to do what we call classification. So here I'm going to click on plus to add a new module. As soon as I type classification here, you'll find text classifier. That's the module I'm interested in. So here in this module, it first needs to receive a text so it can process it. And this text should actually come from the email we just received. So the system will try to read inside the email and understand what it's about. So now I'm going to click on schema. And you'll see in the schema, I actually find all the information related to the email I received. So among this information, we're going to directly look for the text. So here, the text exists right here. It's this one. So in this variable, I need to find all the information from the message that was sent. Usually, people don't just send a resume without any information. They'll include a cover letter in the email, or they'll say that they're applying and so on. So I'll take this text like this and put it here so I can process it. So why does it turn green? It's because I executed the previous node, and that way I can actually follow the flow of information. I'll see how the information moves through the system. That's why it's very important to execute each node separately in order to really understand the system. So here what I want to do is create two categories. Either it will detect that there is, well, a request for the candidate to apply for a position, or there is something else. That's why here I'm going to create two categories. So the first category, we'll call it doesn't apply, meaning here the person is not actually going to apply. Of course, you can write here in the language you prefer, French, English, as you like. So here I'm saying that the person is not actually looking to apply. And then another category is where I'll say, yes, they are applying. So in that case, the person is looking to join the company. Now, here in the options, you'll see that I'm going to connect an LLM, actually an artificial intelligence model. So then in the options, I'm going to work on what's called the system prompt template. That means I can actually leave it as the default setting, because by default, it will simply read this particular text and then perform the classification process. So it is entirely possible to leave it exactly like that. Alternatively, I can also, significantly improve this message a little bit so that it is done in this more refined and appropriate way. So if I simply run it now, just be careful. It tells me, yes, that's completely normal. It needs a node, a subnode actually, where the artificial intelligence has to be integrated inside. So for this model, I'm going to connect an artificial intelligence model here. You'll see that when I click here, I have several models available. I can use DeepSeek, I can use Azure, I can use Google Gemini. In any case, there are several models. The one I use most often is OpenAI's model. So as soon as I select it here, I'm going to configure OpenAI so that OpenAI will help us read the message so we can make a decision. So setting up OpenAI is very simple. Here we need to create a new credential. And of course, as always, you have the documentation here that details all the information for you. So the first thing to do is to access your OpenAI account. You'll see that here, I'm actually going to access this platform, OpenAI. I'm simply going to create an account. And once the account is created, it's simple. I'll go here to the dashboard. I enter the dashboard here, and you'll see that in the dashboard, there's the option to create what we call keys. So here I click to retrieve my key. So here I have several keys. To create a key, it's simple. I just click here on create a key. I give it a name and I click on create a key. So once I have this key, it's simple. I'll come back here to OpenAI and you'll see that I'll actually paste my key here. That's all I'll need, nothing else. Once the key is copied, I'll simply have like here an account connected with OpenAI. So it's really, really simple. Now, don't forget that OpenAI is also pay this key actually costs money. But it's not expensive because we're using a module, or rather a model that's really cheap. So there's the 4.1 mini. There's also actually the 4.0 mini as well. So that one is also actually a 4.0. So with, I'll have several models, right? So I can choose there Yugozo here too. There's a 4.0 as well. It's a model. The 4.0 mini, which is also a model that's inexpensive. In any case, these are models that allow me to read and deliver really, really good results. And here, all I actually need to do is enter my bank card. So I can, for example, add $1 or $2, and that will simply help the system so that I can use up to $2 for a whole month. That allows me to make up to about 1,000 requests. So really, it's not expensive at all. Look here, for example, during the very last month. So if I actually look at this period, we're talking about 2 weeks, and I've used up $0.08. So really, it's very, very interesting to work with OpenAI. So here I'm coming back now. When I set up this model, you'll see that this model is now running. Let's take a look to see whether it's going to work properly or not. Since I just had it place a model, and indeed it tells me, attention, the person who wrote an email here is submitting a job offer, so the classifier is working correctly. Now, of course, if the email is about another subject, we'll simply add no operation here, meaning no action will be taken. So here you just need to write no operation like this. And there you go, you'll see a little node like this that, let's say, will stop the process. So this one won't do anything. So we're telling it here, you're simply not going to do anything. So in the end, it's just for formality. Of course, always remember to save your system. What do I need now? Now I need to prepare the second step. Once I have a robust and fully functional system that works effectively, then I absolutely need to start diligently working on extracting, meticulously recording, and securely saving all the pertinent and valuable information. So here we're going to carefully prepare the crucial second step to begin the comprehensive processing of the resume document. This node here also allows us to transfer other information. It's very important to always click on the node and see what it's returning. As we can see here, there are 2 branches. There's the branch, if ever there's nothing. So here, if the branch contains information, it means it's in the category, the second category, which is this one. Once it's in this category, you can see here, the CV is being transferred here into this variable called attachment 0. For me, what's very important is that I want to do 2 things. First, I want to carefully save the entire file to my Google Drive account, and also I want to accurately extract all the pertinent text from the PDF document, because the essential information is already comprehensively present within the CV itself. I need to launch 2 distinct executions in parallel at precisely the same time. That's why I don't want to do it sequentially, because the CV needs to be sent in 2 parts. If I send it, for example, to Google Drive, the CV will be, the value or the information from the CV will only be on Google Drive. It won't be passed on afterwards to be processed and analyzed. What I'm going to do, as you'll see here, is create a node called switch. Generally here I can work with multiple routes using conditions, but for me, in this case, I won't have any conditions to set. I'm simply going to require that it just takes, if it finds the value that matches this one, we're going to click here. If it finds that, I'll copy it like this. If this one exists, meaning it is present, I want it to send the same information to the first branch, or the first route, as we also call it. And I'm going to add another route because here I can create multiple routes, multiple branches. I'll do the same thing. I'll repeat the same process. If it exists, it will send it as well. It's as if this information will be sent again in 2 parts in parallel. That's the goal. And here in the properties, we're going to ask it to send data to all matching outputs. Here we are going to require it to send the data to all of the branches. The file will be sent again here to this location. If I run it, you'll see that the output will simply give me 2 branches. The information it retrieves from here will simply be sent again in 2 parts. And that's why we're getting ready to do both tasks. The first thing is saving to Google Drive, and the second is analyzing the data and information. So right now, of course, it's still retrieving, but here it's waiting for a task here so it can send the data, because if there's no reception, it will just keep running like this. I'll just stop it here, no problem. We're going to stop it so I can add Google Drive and the node that will extract the PDF. Let's go. Now, let's get to work. First thing, the Google Drive part. When I search here, I just need to type Google Drive, and I'll find a Google Drive node. And here it asks me, what do you want to do? Actually, I want to upload. I just want to click to select the option to send the CV to the server. So I click. You'll see that here, there's what's called the connection with Google Drive. Be careful, the connection with Google Drive is pretty much it's the same as with Gmail, so we're doing the same thing. The only thing that I actually need to change here in reality, there's absolutely nothing to change at all, except for the fact that I simply need to click right here. Look here, I'm going to create a new one. The same, remember, client ID and secret ID, the same code that I'm going to put here. The only thing I'm going to change or update here, and this is very important. If I go back to my console, now I'm going to go to my console. Here, I click on Google Cloud. Of course, I need to make sure that I'm on my correct email account in the console. Always make sure that I'm on the right project. But here, what I'm going to do differently is, in the library, I'm just going to enable Google Drive. Here I'm going to type Drive like this. It will give me all the results. Look. And this is actually the API I'm interested in. I need to enable this one. I click here. And of course, I need to see the green check mark. If I enable it, the same client ID, the project, everything that goes with it, we won't change anything inside. We'll leave it all as is. All I have to do is simply enable this API here so that it remains operational. So now if I come back here, so I'm going to go back to the API I created. So here, for me, it's operational. Of course, I logged in with my Google account. The only difference is that, of course, I keep the same client ID and secret ID as the one from Gmail. But what else did I do? I simply enabled this API so that it could be operational. Now, what I recommend is that you can also come here, search for Google Sheets as well, and enable it too. Docs. So there you go. You'll always have these APIs that you need to enable for your connection to work properly. So here I have my connection. So now I need to do a few small configurations. Actually, it's very, very simple. So we'll just leave it as is. The resource is always a file to upload. The operation is upload. And here for the in data part, so here, remember, I'm actually going to copy this and put it here. So this is the first configuration to do so that the system understands that we're dealing with a file here. Be careful when I click here, you need to switch to expression so that it recognizes it as an expression. There you go. That's important because if you leave it as fixed, it will just be a text value. But if I set it to expression, it will understand that it's a variable. So that's the first thing to configure. And after that, remember that I actually want to give this file a name. So for the name, I actually choose to use just the email address as the name. So here, if I go back to the schema, we're going to go there. I'll take the person's email address because I know that each person has only one email address. There can't be two people with the same email address. So here, I'm simply going to go to from right here. And that's the test email address I created just for testing. So here, that's going to be the name. Afterwards, you can actually add prefixes. You can choose to combine the first name with the last name, or put the email address dash the name of your job offer. You're actually free to choose the name here. Always make sure it's in expression mode, remember, so that it appears in green. As you can see here, this is the test email address I created for testing. After that, I'm simply going to go to my Google Drive folder and select the file I'm interested in. So here it's going to give me the list of files that exist. So I created a specific file called CV. There you go, HR, that's the one. And I tell it that every time someone sends a CV, I want it to be sent here. So we're done. That's the execution. So take a look here. If I run it, we'll see if it works or not. Normally here, it's going to create, for me, basically, it's going to upload the CV. So it should have worked fine. Let's come here and there you go. So the CV has just been added. So it's a CV, even just a test file I made to check if it works. So here, we've just successfully added it. I can already save it. So the addition to Google Drive, very good. So now I actually need to save this information, the link, or more precisely the URL of my CV on Google Sheets. That's why I'm simply going to open Google Sheets here. So here I'm going to increase the size a little bit. There we go. So it's just a simple file where I basically put all the information like the name, email, LinkedIn, phone number, mainly the location. In fact, that's the address, right? The location is the address score, the summary of the text, and all the, well, information. And this is the link. So then how am I going to save this link? It's very simple. If I go back to my workflow, this time I'm going to use Google Sheets. So same thing, I need to set up my client. And this time we're going to create a new row. That's why we're going to tell it to append row in sheet. This actually allows you to add a row. And here, actually, on Google Sheets, of course, I have my credentials set up. So the credential is the same as before. I need to enable Google Sheets in my project so that it's simply connected. And you'll see that here I'm going to look for the file here. So that's it. I've named the file lead generation, and here I have a sheet. It's actually going to detect the sheets. And those are the sheets I'm interested in for scoring. Now I'm going to specify, well, the only two fields I'm actually interested in are these, the email and the CV link. So I'm interested in the email and the CV link. So everything else, actually, I can delete. There you go. We won't need it for now. Later, we'll update the information. So here I'm going to enter the person's email address. So here I can come here and look for the from field. There it is. That's the person's email address. And here I actually need to retrieve the CV link. So to get the CV link, I go to the Google Drive node and simply look for the web view link, this one. There you go. I select it and add it. So what happened as a result? It created it. It's going to create a row. We can already run it just to check that everything is working properly. And actually, I can even improve the connection here in the options. I can ask it to minimize API calls so that it's really fast. And now if I go to Google, I can see that it just added a new row. That's it, actual 3, we just created it right now. So I can even rename this. Let's say we're putting the CV into Google Sheets, and I click Save. So now we've just added the new connection to Google Sheets. What's left? There's still the second route, or rather the second execution, which also runs in parallel to this one. And this is where we're going to work on extracting text from the PDF. Here, I'm going to add a new node called Extract from File. There it is. That's the one. So as you can see, it's asking me here, what exactly do you want to extract from? Of course, from a PDF, because I can extract from several different file formats. For me, it's from a PDF. And quite simply here, instead of putting data, we're going to use the information returned by switch. Here, it's not data, it's simply, we'll put this here. And so now we can just say that we're extracting all the information from the entire CV from the text. By the way, I can run it if I want to. So now it's going to, there you go. That's it, actually, the full text. So here, I have all the information from my CV. One last thing to get everything ready. Well, look, on my Google Sheets here, I'm writing a new, if you want to look here, this sheet, this is where I'll put the job offer. Here, this is kind of the job offer because I can have, over the year, I can have several job offers. It's not a job offer every week. So I'm going to retrieve the specific job offer that matches the receipt of the person's CV. So I can give them a score based on that offer. What I'm going to do is very simple. This time, we're going to use Google Sheets, but we're going to ask it to read. So read, there you go. So we're looking for the reading function. So here, we need to find get row. So here it's going to read. Quite simply here, I'm going to connect. And this time I'll take the second sheet, job offer. And quite simply here, I can just do it in the options. I'm going to ask it to give me the very last row because for me, the very last row contains the most recent job offer. So here I'm going to tell it data location. Okay. And last, the very last one. And I'm also going to tell it to return only the very last piece of information because sometimes I might add 2 rows, but I only need the very last piece of information, the last row. I can run it. You see that now it will retrieve all the text from the job offer since it's the very last row that was just added. I'll save here. All right. Now I'm ready to move on to the very last step. I'm going to put it here. So this step is going to be a very, very important one. This is where I'm actually going to retrieve the data here and start processing it, actually analyzing the text. So now when I get to this part, I'm going to add an agent, but this time it's an intelligent agent that will use LLMIS. So here I'll use this agent. So for my agent, of course, I'm going to specify that we won't be working with it through chat, but rather it will operate by executing the different tools that will be connected to it. The first thing to do is simply to give it what we call the prompt. The system prompt is where I'll show you where to put the basic information. So here, what do I tell it? you're going to have this resume, and actually here's the resume, and you're going to give me a score. That's it. That's your task. Between 0 and 10. According to the resume, the most interesting one will be very, very close to 10. And then I'm actually giving it the job title and description. Remember that I just retrieved these two pieces of information here from the node just before. And I also tell it, be careful, I would like you to reply to the person with a proper acknowledgement, as if you are sending them an email. This is what we call a prompt user message. I would also need to add what we call a system message. Here I am requiring a specific output with a specific format. And here I will add a system message. So this system message is simply to reinforce the guidance and explain its task. Now I'll show you a little bit. It will just be a quick reminder. We're going to tell it that I first need you to collect the information, the name, email, phone number, address, and LinkedIn profile from the CV. I need these so I can put them into my file, actually, here, in this sheet. That's it. And I needed to do some work to reply to the person. That's why here I'm going to have it connect. First, I'm going to connect it to OpenAI so it can use this model. So, as always, it's the same process. I can use the Omni case if I want. Here, this is kind of the search model that I'm going to use with the LLM. Or I can just choose O4 Mini. So the O4 Mini, we're going to use this one. It's much faster. This is very interesting for text analysis. And I would need to provide here, as you can see under tools, I would also like to give it access to Gmail. And this time I'm going to tell it, go ahead, you're going to send a message, send, you see, so that's the operation I want to perform. And in the configuration, of course, is connected with my credentials. And here as well, specifying who to send it to is simple. To the person, I come back here, I go to from, I'm going to send this to that person, and I'm going to say that it was received as a CV, so the application has been received. And here, I let it define the message itself. When I click send, when I press this button, I let the artificial intelligence with the ChatGPT model write and compose the appropriate message. There's no need to specify anything. And I would also actually need to add what we call formatting. So here we're going to try together to structure an output. That is to say, here I'm actually going to require it to create a JSON file for me that contains information I've asked for, the name, the first name, and everything. So as a result, I erase all of this and I'll put in that structure. So it's a very simple JSON structure that contains the name, the email, the keys in, the score, the phone number, and the address. Of course, you can adapt it according to your needs. So as a result, the system here is operational. It's ready to run. And now I'm simply going to connect it to Google Sheets so I can save all this information. But it will actually be very interesting to run it. So now we're going to ask it to execute. You see that thanks to this, it can know when to call Gmail, when to call the structure. It has this ability to write and to understand. We'll let it process for a few moments. And that's the strength of the agent. So here, it makes its own decisions about which tools to use. So now it has just sent the email. So now, as we're speaking, the email has just been sent. Now it's telling me about the format here. Maybe we made a small mistake in the way it was written. We actually need to meticulously ensure that the formatting is absolutely correct, that we haven't made any significant mistakes in the actual writing, or perhaps forgotten any crucial information somewhere within the document. So a little tip, and I'll take this opportunity. It would be good to show you a bit what I do when I get an error. I click here to copy the error. Okay. I copy this error. I open ChatGPT, and here I just do a copy paste simply, and then I go over there and tell it in French. You see? And what's really, really impressive with ChatGPT is that it understands the error message. It will explain to me what I have and what kind of error it is, you know? So the model output format is not valid. So here, basically, it found that the system actually isn't correct in terms of the output. Okay. So here, it's telling me a bit, it's an issue with the format. So what I'm going to do is I can actually copy this for it. So we just copy this. Yes, it's not here. There we go. The generation from JSON example. Now we're going to change it. We're going to tell it define using JSON schema. That means here we're going to force it to use this schema. That's the mistake we made. So now I'm going to paste it like this. Now I'm saving. I'm going to run this node again. This time, let's see what it does. At the same time, it has already sent an email. I'll show you the email I received. Here's the email I received, which was generated automatically. That's very good. The format has just been launched correctly. That's good. When I double click here, I'll be able to see the outputs. Look at the JSON format. See how we did it. Here, the numbers, the score, and everything. These are test information. So actually, this doesn't exist. It's not real information. It's just for testing. So all of this has just been created correctly. All I have to do now is save this data to Google Sheets.